The NBA trade market wings are going to be in high demand as well as guards. We're going to take a look at some of the names that are out there and the latest rumors in the perimeter market for the NBA. Quick reminder, guys, we've got a great viewership here. We're really enjoying everybody that's been coming in and checking out the channel. But right now, only about 20% of the people watching the channel are actually subscribed. So if you could do us a favor, if you're in that 80%, hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications. That way you can join us here at the Basketball Bulletin. All right, everybody, let's get into this topic. By the way, I'm Trevor Lane. Over there, it's Donnie Freeman, aka D Free. Donnie, let's get into some of these. We've got some names coming out here from Brett Siegel of Clutch Points. There are some familiar ones as well as some new ones we're going to get into in just a moment. But from the Brooklyn Nets, guys that are going to be on the trade block now. This article was primarily about Warriors potential targets, but there's some stuff that's interesting here in terms of players that are available around the league. Dorian Finney-Smith, Dennis Schroeder, Bojan Bogdanovic, and Cam Johnson on the perimeter. Which one of those guys do you think holds the most value of those four?
Oh, that's a tough one. Definitely not Bogdan or Bojan because he hasn't been playing. Probably DFS. I mean, it's a toss-up between him and Cam. I'd have to look at their contracts. I don't know, man. I don't want to diss Schroeder here either. I really don't know the answer to that. I guess it just depends on which team you're talking about. Maybe Cam is the one. I know that he has a long-term deal, though, so that's probably what it is.
It's an eye of the beholder thing for sure. I think I agree with that because all of them have their pluses and minuses. Now, it's also worth mentioning that Cam Thomas, his name has popped up too as a player that the Nets could potentially move. I would put him at the top of my list of those guys. I think his ceiling is it's just higher. Now he's also only on a $4 million contract, so I think trading for him is easy. But Dorian Finney-Smith, Cam Johnson, these are guys that we've been talking about for a while. Bojan Bogdanovic has got to get back from injury and get on the floor and show his stuff at 35 years old. But he's an expiring deal. So there's going to be some value there. And then Dennis Schroeder, I think, has been playing great basketball. He's 31, but if you need a guard, the thing I like the most about the Nets, knowing how many guys they're going to put on the trade block, is that no matter what you need, they've got it.
They've got it, right?
Right? Like you need a big, they've got Nick Claxton. You need a wing that can shoot, they've got Cam Johnson. You need more of a defensive presence on the wing, they've got Dorian Finney-Smith. You need a guard who can handle the ball for you and do some things, you've got Dennis Schroeder. They've got everything that you could ask for here. You look just a veteran sniper, Bojan Bogdanovic, right? They've got whatever your contending team needs, whatever you're shopping for, they are the Walmart of NBA teams. They've got everything that you could potentially need. So they are, to me, the team to watch right now on the trade market, particularly with perimeter players, because I don't see any way that they don't move at least a few of these guys by February.
Yeah, the Nets are interesting because I feel like they're going to hold on to their guys for as long as they can, as we saw with Mikal Bridges. They had opportunities to ship him, but they sat on him as long as they could for the best possible deal. So, especially with guys like Cam Johnson, I wouldn't be surprised if they hold on to him and not because they don't have any reason to automatically ship him out. He's not an expiring deal or anything like that, so they can kind of just keep him in their system if they need to for another year, and some other guys as well. But I think, like you said, it does depend on the eye of the beholder. I think DFS is an interesting one because he's making $15 million, and also I think he would probably be the best fit for some teams like the Lakers, who we both cover a lot.
Sure.
I think he would fit amazingly on that team, and I just kind of think that that's more or less what we're looking for. But I do think a guy like Schroeder is absolutely going to be on the market with that expiring deal as well. So I think he's going to be on there for sure, and they're going to try to ship him off. But like you said, if you need it, they've got it. I mean, if you need to clear your books next year, they've got a $40 million expiring deal right there.
Ben Simmons.
It's unfortunate that's all he is now, but they've got a $40 million expiring former All-Star in its prime, supposedly. So, yeah.
Well, let me ask you that, because that's actually interesting, and everybody let us know in the comments too. Where is Ben Simmons next year? And I'm talking contract wise, not necessarily team.
I don't know.
What happens with him next year? I guess, is he in the NBA next year? And what kind of a contract is he on? If he's like, could some team talk themselves into giving him an MLE? Or are we talking like veteran minimum here? Maybe a taxpayer mid level or something? What do you see for Ben Simmons?
He's not. I don't think he's getting an MLE. I don't think there's any chance he gets an MLE.
That's like 13 million we'd be talking about.
Yeah. Isn't it going up next year too? But regardless, I don't think he gets that. I think he's probably someone that's going to sign a deal somewhere for like half of an MLE, something like that. I do think he's in the league next year because I think a team could talk themselves into, especially a good shooting team, could talk themselves into the archetype of player that he is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not out there shooting the ball, but in 25 minutes, he gets 6 rebounds, 7 assists. Like he is out there still moving the ball. And so if you can get anything close to his defensive production from his, I guess, early prime, like his peak, I guess.
His 76ers when he was playing well as a Sixer, sure.
It's just weird to say because he should be in his prime right now as a 28-year-old,
right?
But he peaked early, I guess. Anyway, if you can get that defensive production from him, then all of a sudden, you've got a really good player to plug into your team that should theoretically be versatile with the size and ability that he should have to defend multiple positions if he can get back to that. But he hasn't shown in Brooklyn that he's so much that player anymore. But I think some team will talk themselves into it, and he'll probably be on like a $6 million deal. I think he'll be in the league, but he absolutely will never get another contract like the one that he just got unless he turns into like a 20+ point per game scorer. Which is not going to happen. He's never getting that again.
It's like Ben Simmons suddenly has a moment of clarity and goes back to being this just dominant play, like just the switch gets
player,
flipped.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, he's incredible. It's frustrating you see him not live up to that potential. But anyway, all right, here's some of the other names that are out there. This is again via Brett Siegel of Clutch Points. Donte DiVincenzo. I did a video on this yesterday. Shocked that he's out there potentially on the market. The Wolves just got him. He's only been a Timberwolf for 15 games. In fact, I think the Wolves need to go the other way. Rather than trade DiVincenzo, they should start the man. This guy, they're better with him on the floor, flat out. All the advanced, even though he's not shooting the ball that well, all the advanced metrics show they're better with Donte DiVincenzo on the floor. But nonetheless, if he's not happy coming off the bench and they're not winning games, maybe they do move on from him. Jordan Clarkson with Utah, that's no surprise. JC, somehow Jordan Clarkson is 32 years old. It doesn't feel like that's real. Like that shouldn't be possible. But do you see teams interested in Clarkson? I know teams will be interested in DiVincenzo because everybody's looking for two-way perimeter players, and that's exactly what he is.
Mm-hmm.
Clarkson, do you see him getting interest?
I think that's a huge reason as to why teams would be interested in Clarkson. If he's able to be the type of player that theoretically he is, a microwave scorer off the bench, then I think that could be a good pickup for a contending team, to get a guy like that in their system to give them, 13, 14, 15 points off the bench reliably. I think that you got the numbers there. Okay. Let's see.
There's the stats he's putting up. 16 points, just under 4 assists and 4 rebounds per game on, I didn't realize it was that bad. 28%. I'm rounding up to get there from 3 so far this season. Just 12 game sample size.
His 3-point shooting, it fell off a cliff in the last handful of years.
Yeah, I mean, he's not been a good 3-point shooter for he's been okay at best. He did have that one season in only 28 games with Cleveland where he shot 41% from 3.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's been kind of a mid to low 30s guy. So, I mean, his career number is 33% from 3. So that's like, if that's up around, even if that's like 37, 38, not saying he has to be 40%, but if that's 37, 38, I think teams would have a lot more interest in him.
Yeah. But I mean, he's shooting 7 or 8 threes a game. That's just not going to cut it in some of these seasons. So I do think teams will be interested, but within reason. I don't know that this production is good enough. He's kind of a chucker, so I don't know if teams truly want a chucker. He's not who I remembered him being last time I looked at his box score. To be fair, it's been a few years. And I do wonder if at 32, maybe there's some regression happening there. But I mean, sure. I do want to be positive. I think that he can still get you buckets off the bench. It's just more or less how consistent will he be and how will teams defend him out there if he's not able to knock down the perimeter shot.
I'll tell you what, I think ultimately this is not the year Jordan Clarkson gets moved. I think it's next year. And that's only because he's got 2 years on his deal. I think, like you said, the numbers, he's not efficient enough. Unless they're taking back a longer-term salary, I think teams will wait until he's an expiring contract. Teams are so nervous about any long-term money right now.
Yeah.
It's just that it can be tough with the new CBA. So I think it's next year that he ultimately gets moved. But I'm sure he's very available out there on the market. Pat Connaughton, talk about him for a moment. With the Bucks, just need to do something. The Bucks need to do something to make a move. And right now, the word is that they're not finding a lot of success out there in the trade market. Maybe you move Pat Connaughton if you can. He's been a long time Milwaukee Buck, but that team just the whole team just got old really fast. And I don't know that the move is out there for them to fix it. You look at Pat Connaughton, 9.4 this season. And then this is the problem, player option next season for 9.4. I'd imagine he's picking that up.
Yeah, I think so too. I saw a report earlier today that the Bucks are looking to retool around their 2 stars. And so,
as they should.
He's probably going to be one of the guys that they're trying to ship out in the process of that. And like you said, the team just kind of got old out of nowhere. I mean, they've got what, 5 30-year-olds, 6 30-year-olds on this team. So kind of got old, bad, old and bad at the same time. Unfortunate for them, but I do think they should be looking to move on from some of their players. And Connaughton, I think, could be, I got to pull his numbers up too, but if he could get some positive regression, I think he could be a nice player for some of these other teams to grab.
Yeah, Pat Connaughton, by the way, let me say this. I did years ago at Summer League, I did an event for kids with Pat Connaughton, Dorian Finney-Smith, DeMar DeRozan was involved too. And Pat is a great guy. Like he was, right at home working with all these kids, right down on their level, teaching them the game. Just very cool to see the way he interacted with these kids and made this camp for them so much fun. So I always want to throw in a positive note for Pat Connaughton. But you look at the numbers, 5 points. He's playing 17 minutes. Gone are the days where he's in Milwaukee playing 26 minutes a night and giving you almost 10 points. The 3-point shooting percentage hasn't been. If that doesn't come up, I think he's probably a negative value because everybody's going to assume he's going to pick up that option. I don't think there's any, denying that. He's just not productive enough. And at 32, again, is he just another Milwaukee Buck that has fallen off the age cliff?
Yeah, I think that may be the case. I mean, as you would expect, the entire team is probably looking similar to this with their production, aside from their star guys for the most part, because that's why their record is what it is up to this point. But he's an interesting player, I think, for an expiring contract next season as well. The Bucks are going to look to try to ship him probably this year because this production doesn't scream keep me in town. No. But he's always been somebody that was also pretty good at doing more of the intangible stuff because he's never had big box score production throughout his career. And he's never been, he had one season, I think it was actually their championship year, the year after their championship year. So basically a couple years where he was a pretty good 3-point shooter, but for the most part, he's not also been that either for his career. So you're looking for him to kind of bring up some of his production with his finishing, because currently that's at 45%, which is below career average for him, which is 58%. Yeah. So he's not finishing at all. He's not hitting his 2-point shots. So all in all, I do think that he's a player that could be interesting to try to acquire if he's giving you more production, similarly to Clarkson. But it's kind of hard to say that when the guy's 32 years old. I don't really know what I'm getting.
Yeah, where's the upside there in that? Now let's jump over to Matisse Thybulle, the other guy that was named. Now he's just 26 years old.
Yeah,
defensive dynamo. The box score doesn't tell the whole story for what you get out of him. Although it is noteworthy that he's now shooting 35% from three. He doesn't take a ton of them. 3.6 attempts per game is not a lot in today's NBA. Look at last season with Portland, he was at 38%. For his career, just a 34% 3-point shooter. But if the 3-ball is real for him, he is one of the better perimeter defenders in the NBA, period. He can make a real difference on that side of the floor. So Matisse, like if I'm a team and I'm looking at Pat Connaughton, I would, very different skill set, but I would be way more interested in a guy like Thybulle at 26, who's got, I think, at least he's got a really good NBA skill, and that's being a lockdown defensive player.
Yeah, for his career, he'll give you a steal and a half and almost a block per game. And that's not even accounting for his actual intangible stuff or his perimeter defense or switchability, things like that. I would be looking for him as a player to try to acquire on any team, I think, that needs a defensive wing. The way I look at him, and I'm sure that it's very different on court, but the way that his box score looks, the way it screams to me is similarly to a player like Cam Reddish or Vando, where you got somebody out there that you can just stick on somebody else. And that's what you're looking for a guy like this for. And he also isn't going to play a bunch of minutes. His high for his career is 25. This year he's playing 23. But I also think I think some of the shooting is real. Like, he's not a bad shooter per se. He's just not a great one. Like, he's had up and down 3-point shooting years, 35 currently this year, but he's had good volume at 3.5 per game this year. So, I mean, if he can hit 33% of his threes on, a few attempts per game to keep defenses honest, I think that's all you really need from him if he's giving you the production elsewhere out there. So I think that he's somebody that teams could and potentially should be trying to target to bolster up their perimeter defense. And he's still pretty young. Like, he's only been in the league for a handful of seasons here. He's not like an old guy. This is his 5th year in the league. And it feels like he's been in the league longer than that to me.
It does.
But he's still really young. So I think you should definitely, if you're looking for a player like that, take a flyer on him.
Donnie, you know what's happening is we're just getting old because we're way off on it. Feels like Thibault has been around forever. For me, for ages, it was Andre Drummond, who was like somehow 30 for like 5 years, it felt like. And then Jordan Clarkson doesn't feel like he should be 32 at all.
30. Yeah, definitely. It's just kind of weird. But don't put me in the same boat as you, man. I'm not that old.
Thanks for calling me out on the age thing. But yes, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Oh, no. So I think to wrap all this up, like I did over here on the channel, I talked a little bit about some of the bigs that are on the market, some of the names that we know, Jonas Valanciunas, of course, Rob Williams, some of those guys, Nikola Vucevic, maybe Larry Nance Jr., some really interesting names, though, and also interesting names here on the perimeter and on the wing. I mean, when you look at Dennis Schroeder, we're talking about Thibault, we're talking about Connaughton, and particularly when you look at the Nets guys, Cam Johnson and Dorian Finney-Smith. I think the bottom line, Donnie, what this is really shaping up to be heading into a February trade deadline. Again, we have a lot of time between now and then, but we're hearing a lot of names that are high-level role players that if the right team gets that guy, they can make a really big impact. And I think that's what we're going to see a lot of. And teams are going to have to be selective in which targets they have, but there's also a very diverse array of skill sets that are out there on the market to teams that are in a buyer's situation to choose from. And I'll say that's not necessarily been the case in past years. So I think this year's trade market, it's shaping up to be an active one. And I think what's interesting is that there's so many different paths. Do you want to get a guy who can shoot? Do you want to get a guy who can play lockdown defense? Do you want a big? Do you want a wing? Do you want a guard? I think all of those things and more are going to be available on the market, just not necessarily at a superstar level. But I think there's guys who may not have big names, but make a big impact on the team overall if they're plugged into the right squad.
Yeah, I think that optionality is going to be huge for some of these teams out here that are looking for certain things and saying, okay, well, we need X, Y, and Z. Maybe we can go get X here, we can get Y there, and we can put all this together and we can try to make a push for this thing. Also, there are going to be a number of teams that have some of these guys that could be, the targets for other teams, and they're maybe trying to clean their books or a lot of different things. So I do think that this year should be pretty diverse. I don't want to hype myself up, but I'm excited for it. It's only a couple of months away. So I'm excited.
Let's go. And I think this is if ever there was a year for moves to happen early, it'd be this year. Because you've got two factors here. You've got a very tight race in the West. I think you've got teams who see openings in the East too, where there's motivation for teams to buy, but there's also motivation for teams to sell this year. Was not the case last year because people were looking at the draft and going, whatever, no big deal. If we're the 7th pick, we'll be just as good as if we're the 1 pick, right? Not so this year. This year, people are trying to capture the flag, but there's 5 guys at the top of this year's draft. And I think you're going to get some teams that are more incentivized to shed talent, tank, guarantee as high of a pick as possible. And so I think we're going to get more opportunities for deals to happen, despite how difficult it is to trade using the new CBA. So should be an exciting trade season. Make sure you guys do subscribe right here to the channel if you're not a subscriber already. Till next time, go check out the latest video that we have out there, which is on the conference system and the West pushing to do away with it. Will we see massive overhaul in the NBA? Go click on that one right now.